Hello everybody and welcome to this year's World Book Night video 2022. It's the first time I think we've properly been out of proper lockdown and restrictions, so welcome to the official first non-lockdown World Book Night video. I'm beginning this time on a slightly different note. I don't usually start reviewing my books, but I'm going to talk about Prima from March this year. There's an article in it that's really to talk about Kate Thompson's book, The Little Wartime Library, and there it is, you can see it there. Bombs and books. Kate Thompson has written a book, which is, if I lift it up, at the bottom of the page there, and it's called The Little Wartime Library. And she's done lots of research about this, and I got the book for my birthday, so no doubt when I've read that one I will get back to you with my review of that one. And here we are again, so books and bombs, and basically it's about the importance of libraries wherever we are in the world, in life, in time. It's really important that people could access books. The libraries were finding it difficult to open. One librarian from the library above this underground station decided that as people were going into this underground station to shelter at night, he would open the library between 5 and 9 every night, and he kept everybody supplied in books. I think it's a really great story, and it really does show the importance not only of libraries, but the importance of reading material for people. And as we found during the pandemic, a lot of people who hadn't been reading very much found they had more time to explore books again, and were really quite happy that they had the time, and they've gone back to reading books, and I do believe they'll continue to do that. So that is very good. And that is the article. So if you can get hold of a copy of Marcia's Prima, if you know somebody who's got some back copies of it, you may like to investigate the story for yourself. Another thing that I'm going to do that's slightly different is I'm going to talk about 3 children's authors, because although I talk about adult books in general in my World Book Night videos, I have in fact sometimes talked about children's books. I'm going to talk about 3 authors and or illustrators, and I think in this case they were all authors and illustrators that have recently died, who have been a major issue on not only my life and my children's lives, but the lives of a lot of people. And I'm going to begin with this little fellow here, Elmer. Here's Elmer. Say hello, everybody. Flap your ears. Give it a little flap. There we are. This is actually my daughter's Elmer. She's very fond of Elmer. She used to have a jacket just like Elmer. And he actually lives in Rebecca's flat. And I've borrowed him. He's come visit at Easter holiday, so that I can talk about the work that David McKee did. David McKee was one of the authors and illustrators who has recently died, and he did Elmer, obviously about Elmer the elephant. He did lots of stories based on Elmer and his friends. My particular favourite is Elmer in the Snow, because despite the fact he's got lots of colours, they can't necessarily find him in the snow. David McKee, he may be familiar to you, if not through Elmer, through his work, Mr. Ben, that became obviously very well known. It moved on from being a book to being an animated TV series. Mr. Ben obviously goes into the shop to try on an outfit, and when he goes into the changing room, if by magic he goes off and has an adventure, then comes back out and he's his normal self again, just to remind you. And the other thing that he's particularly famous for, I think, is a book called Not Now, Bernard. So that's a little how can I put it, a little recollection of David McKee and his work, and our little friend Elmer, who's going to stay here and listen to the rest of it. There we are. You enjoy yourself just there. So now, talking of the second author illustrator that I wish to remember, his name is Jan Pienkowski, and he's particularly well known for his work Mog, who's a witch, and Meg. Well, Meg is a witch and Mog is the cat, obviously. This is one book that I requested from the library. Getting hold of one at the moment, I think for the same reason as a lot of people, was quite difficult to do, but I did eventually manage to track down Meg's Eggs, where she, if we have a look, Meg puts out her cauldron because it's supper time. And the illustrations are really lovely. They're very, very simple drawings, but they say such a lot. If you look at the face on the owl, for example, and she cooks all the eggs and things, and various things happen. For example, out of this egg comes a stegosaurus. A few years ago, in fact quite a long time ago, I think it's probably about 10 years ago, we were doing a Halloween display and we were doing Meg and Mog, and I actually copied out Abracadabra from the way it was written in these books, enlarged it, cut them out and coloured them in and put them on the display. I was quite proud of that because I'm usually quite hopeless. Now, going on from there to one of his other works, I don't know if people are as familiar with this one as I am, Haunted House. This, as far as I know, only comes as a pop-up book. And that's the first page. And I love these because obviously there's so much to explore within this. And he's done all the illustrations as well for this. I think as with Meg and Mog, with Meg and Mog, Jan Nicol wrote the story and Jan did the illustrations. Whereas with this one, I think, because it is all illustrations. Oh, this one's not quite working correctly. He's done all of it. I mean, they are really something to behold. The pictures in here, they are quite astonishing, really, in how they appear. And I used to love myself personally all the ones where you can open flaps, pull it open even with the flap, and it flaps open. If you just move it slightly and you get the full effect, out comes the skeleton. Try and lower it down a little bit so you can see it better. So that's Jan Pienkowski. And then we come on to another really well-known author, illustrator, Shirley Hughes, who's also recently died. Now I do believe she did the illustrations to the book by Dorothy Edwards, My Naughty Little Sister. But she's particularly well known for this one here, the character of Alfie. And this is, there were quite a few to choose from in the library, but I picked Alfie and his very best friend because as I looked through it, and there's my tickets, look. Shows I borrowed them when they're due back. There are so many in the series, and I thought, how can I pick out one that I really think I want to talk about? And this is great because it's so many children can relate to all the activities on these pages. the reason I picked this one is because it talks about the library, and again, as I've said, it's such an important place, and many people perhaps don't appreciate why and how they're important. It isn't just about reading books. For example, they have it as the librarian here. They've got the library lady. Well done. They haven't got librarian, because it's not always a librarian. Sometimes it's an assistant. So library lady is somewhat better. It's a difficult one. Library assistant's probably better if you work with a lot of men, as I have done in some of my larger libraries that I've worked with, and on occasion some small ones. But here they are, having a story at the library, and what's important about that is that all the children are getting together. They've had a trip to the library, so it's more of a communal thing. It's about being together, looking at books, having that bit of freedom to look at books for yourself and choose a book that you like. I can't emphasise how important that is. And also, this is another one with two of her other well-known children that she writes about, Lucy and Tom, and there they are. And this is from 1 to 10, because they do, or rather she does do, some books are basically about numbers. For example, Tom watches Dad cut the bread to make toast. The toaster takes 2 slices of bread at a time. There we are. See, there it is. And the illustrations are so homely and comforting. And this page, the illustrations of Shirley Hughes are just incredible. There's so much in this particular picture there. And even with the food here, the child can be having this read to them and be listening to the story. But also, as they're listening to the story, they can look at all the illustrations and take that all in. But if the children are looking at this book and they can't actually read very well, or not much of it at all, they can actually spend a really nice amount of time just looking through the incredible illustrations. So that is Shirley Hughes, and I'd like to personally pay my particular tribute to all these authors and illustrators that I've just talked about. But there are so many, and probably some that I've missed in the past that I could talk about, who matter so much and have made all the difference to people. So I'm now going to do my reviews, and to be fair, I normally will look at my Goodreads reviews before I review my books to remember some of the pertinent points. I haven't done that because I've just decided to find a window of opportunity within the life that I've got at the moment to film it. So basically I'm just going to go at it as it is. So let's go for that. Now, some of you may know and some of you may not know, I've really enjoyed the 2 series of Staged on the television, and during both pandemics, honestly, this was such a source of light relief and humour that I just looked forward to it so much. And even then I didn't necessarily manage to wait a whole week, and I would end up watching the next episode and maybe the next episode after that, and then even then watching it when it was actually broadcast as well. And because I'm on David Tennant's pages, I was informed there was going to be a book published by a publisher called Unbound of the complete series, and here it is, completely staged. So this is, as I say, the publication of the TV series that got me, basically, it got me through lockdown, especially just before I left work last year. I would think to myself, oh great, at least it's staged tonight. At least I've got something to keep me going. And I did pay full price for this book, and I figured it was worth it then, and it's worth it now. And I have, in fact, if you're not aware of it, I did a little unboxing of completely staged, should I say, when it arrived. not known for that kind of thing, but I thought I'm going to do this. And if you look inside at the front cover, this is what you get. And again, if you look at the back, the same. Now, and I know this has been changed, this is the wallpaper on the wall of David and George's house. It was on their, what you would call their feature wall in their sort of dining kitchen area, behind the bench seat and the table. There's quite a lot of scenes that are shot there. That's the wallpaper they had up at the time, and I know it's not the same now. I suddenly looked at one of the pictures from more recent days and thought, oh, they've changed their wallpaper. Such a shame, but so beautiful. And I mean, even the edges of the book is beautifully made. The material is just lovely. You really feel as if you've got something special, because it also came with, if I can just find where it is, there it is. It came with, I'll put it down, it came with one of these, look, lovely piece of ribbon, and in the middle is something that wasn't included in the series. It's just a bit of fun. GT's carrot cake, Georgia Tennant's carrot cake. Now, the thing is, Georgia Tennant often burns food in reality, and she shares this with us on Instagram, and this is her carrot cake recipe. And what I like about it is that it says prep time should take 35 minutes but will be dependent on accompanied wine consumption. That's the kind of recipes I like, and it's very down to earth and very humorous. And then we come on to my favourite episode of series 1, which is episode 4, Barra Breathe. And it's the one where Michael Sheen says to David Tennant, "Is that your face on that mug?" And he flatly says, "No." There are lots and lots of humorous sections, obviously because it's from the TV series. If you wanted to, you could even follow the series along while you're watching the DVD, which is also available. I bought this from Unbound, being a David Tennant fan. I found out about this and I paid full price for it, but I do believe that you can actually get it for £10 on Amazon if it's still available, so have a look and see. And now we come on to Russell T Davies and Benjamin Cook, The Writer's Tale, the final chapter. This book covers the final series that he did as showrunner, and it consists of every single email that Russell T Davies and Benjamin Cook sent to each other regarding the series, and literally everything is in this series. So when you look at it, there are 693 pages in this. It talks a lot about the minutiae of the making of the series, the different plots they might be considering. There are some very detailed sections about all of that, and whether they were going to use special effects or whether they were too expensive or not. Literally everything is covered in here. My son and I laid down a challenge to each other last year, which was if I read this, which he kept telling me to read, and he would read a Jane Austen, and that's what happened. I was not expecting to enjoy this book, but I did. There are all sorts of things in here as to do with the filming of the series, including pictures, little drawings like that, and even photographs. This is one that I like. Of you can't really see it there, can you? Russell T and where are we? Do it like that. the Master and the Doctor. Oh, that's better, like that. There we go. Russell T Davies is a genius, not just in his writing, but in how he conveys this in this book. I mean, there may be emails, but I can't speak highly enough of this book. I in fact rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, and certainly through my own knowledge of the books I've read and their ratings, The Writer's Tale, the final chapter, is the highest rated book that I have actually personally read on my Goodreads. When I looked at reviews of this, there was nothing lower than a 4, so it's really highly rated. If you are a fan and you've not read it, or if you're not so much of a fan but you're interested in the writing process, which I know some people are, then I really, really recommend this. And here we are with the classic, Around the World in 80 Days. Now I knew that this was going to be a TV series before it was a TV series, so I thought I really must read this book so that I can get an idea of what the series may be like. Now in actual fact the series is in many ways is different to the book. The book is great and I gave it 5 stars. Phileas Fogg in this is very different to the Phileas Fogg portrayed on the recent TV series. I didn't give it much of a review because there wasn't a lot to say. It is a great book. It's pretty humorous in places. If you want an adventurous romp, this is an adventurous romp. And I can see from reading this why they changed quite a lot of the book. And they changed Phileas, because in the book, Phileas is really, he doesn't really have a personality. He's just a very quiet person. But for me, the story in the book is about him being a quiet person, but just proceeding slowly, a bit at a time to accomplish what he wants. And he gets there in the end. There are certain chapters, for example, the chapter when they're in India, which is completely different to the one in the series. Now, there is a reason for that. If you haven't read the book, and I don't want to give that away, there's something in there that's really, I don't think would be very good for a TV series. It's not very palatable, and it may even be questionable these days as to whether you want to have that in the TV series. That's all I'm going to say. And for me, this as a book is great. As I say, I really enjoyed it. I would recommend that people read it. It's not particularly a long book. But you need to bear in mind, personally, for me, it's more of a standalone than the series. All they've done is take 2 of the characters from the book and then adjust a character from the book for the TV series. They both work, but both on their own. Very enjoyable though. This just kept appearing on my book adverts last year. Cathy Bramley, the Merry Christmas Project. I didn't really have enough time when I was at work in a library to read all the Christmas books that I wanted. And I thought to myself, do you know what, I want to spend some of this December, while things aren't particularly brilliant still, reading some really good, just feel-good Christmas stories. I want a book about Christmas that does what it says on the front, basically on the tin. And Cathy Bramley's book does that. The title has a particular meaning which I can't tell you because it will give the game away. It's a very modern story, and I think what's clever about this story is that it appeals across the board. It would appeal to your 16-year-old and it would appeal to your 8-year-olds. Written in a very modern way, so certainly will appeal to the younger age group, but there's plenty in it for older people. Also, the thing I like about Cathy, which I don't always find with people, is that she can write conversation and she can write it in a modern fashion. And that is a particular skill, I find, that some conversation in some books can be stilted, some of it's not very real. But it's all like Russell T Davies said when I read what he writes. You have to write in a way that is real. You wouldn't have something on the television, or sometimes you do, where somebody will say something and somebody will reply, and that's not really what they would do in real life. This book is very real. It's a really light-hearted read. What does happen in the end is what you want to happen. So where you might think it's predictable, yes it is. But really and truly that's what you want for the characters in the book. I certainly really enjoyed this and I gave it 5 stars. And I'm certainly going to read some more Cathy Bramley's. And then we come on to a book that I'd seen on and off and I'd never really thought about reading, but I saw it in the bookshop and I thought, I'm going to buy that. Just because it's not very much money, I'll buy it for a couple of quid. Marcia Willett, The Christmas Angel. Now you may be familiar with this, it's not a new book. It's been around for a while. I personally have given this book 5 stars. I've spoken before that some books, they just speak to you, and they're the books that you just can't get rid of. It's hard to define, but this book is absolutely perfect for me. It's just so cosy and warm and comforting. And for me, there were sections of this book that really, really did speak to me on a personal level. There's a lot about being patient in this book, which at the moment is really, really current, and waiting for things and seeing what's going to happen. I like it because it begins, I'll say at the beginning, but it begins with Epiphany. And it goes right the way through to the very last chapter, which is, let me see, does it have a chapter page? No. But it goes right through to the very last chapter, which is, let me see, it should be where it began. There we are. From Epiphany to Advent. But the book, if I can say this, the book ends where the story begins in Epiphany. It's a beautifully written story to me, as I say. It's about the patience, the changing of the seasons because it goes through from Epiphany, blah de blah, and then right through to the beginning of Christmas the following year. There are also descriptions in here of the weather and the changing seasons. It's a very difficult one to actually describe, but I would say if you want something cosy and comforting that you can read, not maybe every year, but every 2 or 3 years, and really enjoy and feel really comforted with, then this book is the book. I'd like to read this again in 3 or 4 years' time and see if I can pick anything else out of it other than what I've spoken about. Patience, persistence, and that feeling of just being cosy where you are with things, you know. I hope you choose to have a go at this one if you haven't. And finally, we come on to a book that I read. I borrowed this from the library before I left my job in the library, the music shop, Rachel Joyce. It was this, I borrowed this hardback, this particular hardback, and I'd still got the book when I'd left work, and we were still not able to go very far, we were restricted. And I'd got a pile of books out because I thought, well, if I can't get to the library, I've got some books, I can keep renewing them and then I can take them back. I consequently got them read and taken back. But then I really wanted to review this one for my World Book video this year. So I went to the local library that I started using, one that I've never worked in, and re-borrowed the exact edition. It's the first one of Rachel's that I've read. This again is a superb book. In a way, the characters in this book remind me of some of the characters that Fanny Flagg writes about in her books. They're slightly off the wall, a bit different, but you kind of warm to them. And this is the case with the music shop. The characters are all a little bit off the wall. Perhaps people don't give them the time of day that they should, because you know how people are. And they tend to all come together, as you do in places where you feel safe and you feel that you belong with that group of people. And the music shop and where it is what I think this book is about. The fact that this is a music shop that's a little bit different, attracts the attention and company of different people that either work in the shop or come into the shop. And it's about the relationships between these people and what is going to happen with the shop. And it also does talk about either pieces of music or composers, etc. How would you explain the plot other than what I've said without reading it? Would be difficult to say. There are obviously going to be many reviews of this online because it isn't a new book. But I loved this book. It's one of those books that you will remember that you've read and you will recommend to people. And it just stays with you. It's one of those books that does stay with you. It may be interesting to see if it ever becomes a series or a film, because the characters are fascinating. They are just really interesting people. I can't describe it more than that, but I will say that it really is a great book. If you haven't had, as I say, if you haven't had a go at this particular book and you fancy something a little bit different, go for this one. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Anyway, that is all for now. I don't know how this is going to all come out and get a look at the end of it, but I'm not going for the really professional kind of finished YouTube video. I'm just going for me doing them and speaking to you as if you're here with me. And Elmer, of course, he's here as well at the moment. So I'd like to wish you all a very happy World Book Night. I keep hoping and planning to do some more non-book videos. Who knows, I may well achieve that and I may well not. However, we've got this one out, we've done it. I do hope that you watch it and that you enjoy it. If there's a few blips, yeah, we're very sorry. And I hope to be with you again and do you another one. Bye for now.